All right. Hi, everybody. This is Ree. And
Hooray.
so, one of the things that I wanted to do is interview my wife, the Rev. She interviews so many people. And of course, you've heard a little bit of her story, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. Uh, and, but I don't know if anybody's actually interviewed you. Am I wrong?
Not on my channel.
Not on your
Not
channel.
yeah.
So what I decided to do today is, and we talked about this. I probably had the questions back in January, but life happens, and so I'm going to make it official. All right. So I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Lekesha Ataquafio. So Reverend Dr. Lekesha Ataquafio is a servant leader in the body of Christ
Are you
who
really reading my Bible?
ministers as a bold, relevant, energetic, theologically sound preacher and teacher who reveals the will of God for the body of Christ and empowers believers to live in it. She also continues to lead her call ministries, a 501c3 nonprofit organization known as the Network for Women in Ministry, with recent expansion into the international online Facebook platform serving a group of 12,000 members. She enjoys Latin dancing, painting, travel, and empowering others to enjoy adventures with God. There are life lessons and personal videos with her husband, me, Ree, at the Quathio, with whom she is still enjoying an extended honeymoon. So that was a little outdated, but it's still a honeymoon when you're married to me. On Friday, November 11th, 2022, she and Ree married and now enjoy a blessed life together as partners in dance and romance. Together, they facilitate classes, workshops through their dance business, Agape Dance Trio. Of all of her accomplishments and goals, the most important is impacting nations and generations of people to live an intensified life for the glory of God. Help me in welcoming my wife, Dr. Lekesha B. Hey, what's up, Doc? How you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I am
Oh
good.
my goodness. I
I
can't
am good.
believe you read that
Of
whole
course,
thing.
I gotta give you the same respect you give everybody else. Just because you're my wife doesn't mean you don't
Yes,
deserve.
sir.
Can I do the interview, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I know I have a list of questions here, probably about 13, 14 questions. We don't necessarily have to get through them all, and we'll just kind of will flow based on how the answers go. So
Okay.
some of these questions uh, we may not even get to. So let's just start from the top.
Sure.
How old were you when you gave your life over to God? Do you remember that?
Um, I don't remember the exact age of my actual salvation conversion experience. I do remember I was like in the seventh, eighth grade. So
Hmm.
wherever you are in that time, it was official. My family started going to church. My dad started taking us to church when we were consistently in the fifth grade. So before that, it was off and on. But right around fifth grade is when we started going consistently. And by seventh, eighth grade, somewhere about there, after a few years, you actually start paying attention and
Okay.
listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I just I remember the day, the service, the singing, the choir, all of that. When I was in the pew, and I was like, in my heart, I want to say yes. This is yes to the Lord for me.
Hmm. Right. Junior high.
Yeah, somewhere about there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's what went on my mind in junior high. But anyway, and if we get too personal, you can always just tap me on the leg like you usually do if I'm saying too much.
Okay.
So, was there anything in your life that made you decide that this was the right time for you to give your life over to God?
A few things. First of all, my family life started to deteriorate. My parents were uh, close to divorcing, and I remember that I felt like if that structure of a family was no longer secure or provided security for me, then the only one I could lean on, trust is God. So that kind of pushed me to go all in, all in. All of that was happening around the same time, so in the eighth grade, somewhere about there. So the experience in church was earlier, but then shortly after that came the real solidifying decision to be all in, because I just felt like I needed that security, that safety, and trusting God was the only way I knew that I would be able to navigate that process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
what that's what I remember. Yeah.
Okay. So when I say she lives it, she obviously she's been living it for a long time, y'all. So when she's speaking to you, I call her the prayer chief because she leads
Oh
a
my
group
gosh.
of prayer warriors at the church. And since she leads the group, usually the leader of a group of warriors is the chief. So I call her the prayer chief. So get back to the questions. Uh,
Okay. Thank you. Thank
can you share with us a little bit about your childhood? What was it like growing up? You have siblings.
Oh
I
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
you talked a little bit about.
I have, and my mother was gracious enough, and my brother, one of my brothers, gracious enough to be on YouTube to help me share those stories. But I have two younger brothers. I was raised with we have the same parents. When my father remarried, his second wife has had two daughters already, and then they had a third together. So that's that's my family. That's just it. But growing up in the house with me consistently, as I know it, being raised with siblings, it was just me and my two younger brothers.
Okay. Okay. How do you think that shaped your childhood growing up with two younger brothers and
Oh my goodness. I always blame them, and that's a strong word, but I really do. I give them the blame, or you can say in a positive way, I give them the credit for helping me to be a little tougher because even though I'm the oldest, something about little brothers, they want to terrorize you. And so, anyway, the point is, I feel like it helped me to be a lot more comfortable in settings with guys
Mhm.
and have a kind of a really cool relationship because I grew up with brothers, so I just always felt comfortable, around guys. And then I laugh with one of my friends because I feel like I talk man,
Okay.
like
Okay. You used to say that when we first met.
yeah,
You can talk
I
man.
feel like I can talk man. I
Hmm.
kind of get how guys talk and think a little bit. That helps me not to take things so personally or be too sensitive. And also, it's probably why I have a little bit of a rough edge sometimes because we just kind of flow like that. So it also helped me, I feel like, in the profession that I now have. I had no idea. I did not aspire to be in ministry. It wasn't something that I was looking for. But obviously, because it is male dominated and learning how to hold your own and be okay, sometimes even being the only woman in the room.
Hmm.
Yup.
So I was going to go somewhere else, but let's just talk about that for a moment. Me being on this end now and being uh, much more closer to the inside of the church as ever before, and as many people maybe are not. Uh, Share with me a little bit about how you navigate rooms where there may be uh, people that don't believe that a woman should be in the rooms with
Oh,
men.
oh, wow. And I've had a few of those. Um, Earlier in my career, earlier in my calling, so let me just say, it was never an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't try to absorb and own that I needed to prove something or that I would allow myself to feel some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful that when I was called in the first church I served in, a lot of the ministers that came, if they did not affirm women or if they did not believe women should be preaching, I always felt safety because I'm in my home turf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm at my home base. So
Mm-hmm.
you can come here and you may not agree, but just like I wouldn't go to somebody else's home and tell them move their furniture around,
Right.
nobody's going to come to this home base for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and make me feel uncomfortable in my own home space.
Mm-hmm.
Now there were times there were people who were, less than gracious, but for the most part, I just chose not to try to absorb all of that. As I begin to mature and you get into other spaces, you can read a room and tell whether or
Okay.
not, where things are.
Mm-hmm.
But I always felt like, you know what? If God want me to be there, I'm gonna own it and walk in there and be present, fully present.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, I don't feel like, and I'm thinking because I'm trying to make sure I'm telling the full truth. Like I don't recall ever feeling that I need to shrink down or deny or minimize who I am to make somebody else feel better. That's just not how I roll. I just
Mm-hmm.
I just never had to do that. because that's their issue. That's not my issue. I'm good.
Good.
So if you're not good, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really feel like God gave me, I think, a special grace to
Okay.
just kind of be okay with it. And it also helped that I had a few women in my life that I could look to for example, or even call on, and some safe spaces that I could really vent if I needed to. But for the most part, when you're walking in your truth and full integrity of who you are and what God has called you to be, it's easier. It's not like I was pretending to be
Right.
something. I never
Right.
felt like
That
I
makes
needed to
sense.
prove something. So it's just who I am. It's just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, so tell us a little bit about your college life and going to college and then
Oh.
graduating from college and your other degrees and all the other letters you have behind your name. But let's start off with college. Like, what was, where did you go to college? Why did you
Uh-huh.
choose the college you went to?
Oh, okay.
And what was
These are
that
good
like? Like,
questions. I didn't know these questions, just so y'all know for real. I didn't know what you were gonna ask me. So
well, I told you that's what I do for a living, girl. Just because I don't interview people, I'm always asking
yes,
questions.
sir, you are. You always asking questions. He said he'd send them
Like
to
from
me.
Love Jones, I'm not searching for answers. I'm asking the question. Watch Love Jones, my favorite movie all
Okay.
time. Lorenz Tate, Neil Long. Okay,
You done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Back to you.
Um, so college was interesting because I got a full ride to the University of Houston. Go Cougs! And I was able to stay on campus. So although I'm a native of Houston, it was really a blessing that I got to live on the campus because it gave me the full college experience. In
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, I loved it. I loved it. Some of my very, very best and deepest relationships were formed in college. And I was a part of the Good News Gospel Choir.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you sing us something?
No,
Anything you? Okay.
choir. I was background, like
Okay.
with like 50, 60 other
Okay.
voices.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, back way in the
Way in
background.
the back. Okay.
But that was really formative because I served as a chaplain in that choir. We had Bible studies, and it was a real ministry. So it wasn't just the singing. And again, it was just so essential to my spiritual development because I feel like we were in a special season. I feel like the young people, the college students we were then, it was exceptional.
You said
And
that before.
yeah, it's true though. There are so many of us who went on to truly lead and do other great things serving God, but the foundation was right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was like a little mini revival. It's like there was this really cool bubble God put us in for a season, and so many good connections were made. I mean, when you think about college life, for us getting together and staying up all night to listen to worship music, gospel music, don't hate, to listen to gospel music, to I remember this time. I gotta say this. Shout out to Spence, Julie, Courtney. Y'all remember the time we got in her little geostorm.
Okay.
Julian had a geostorm, and we rode out to Galveston just so we could see the sunrise and be looking out on the pier and have prayer and worship. Like that was our little escape from campus kind of thing. But college,
And we went to the beach in Galveston back in when I was in college. Anyway, this is about you.
anyway,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that was cool. That was our thing. We went to the Baptist Student Union retreats.
Okay.
Those were always a big hit, a huge draw, a lot of fun. You see the college choirs and other people serving in their campuses across the nation. So I was actually the president. So this is crazy. In my college years, the 50th Golden Jubilee Student Baptist Student Union retreat was during my time, and I ended up being the president of that particular retreat. You couldn't have paid me to believe that that would happen,
Hmm.
but it was just one of those divine kind of appointments or how timing came together. So my college life was great. Now we did on-campus ministry. I was part of Christian sorority. I say that because it was started during the time while I was in college. I was part of the first leadership
What
team
was
of that
what was the name?
Alpha Omega Alpha Christian sorority.
Did y'all have a certain sign or anything that call that y'all?
They in the beginning, but
Mhm.
not so much later.
You remember what it was?
Mm-hmm.
What was
Something.
something?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
No,
And y'all throw y'all's
no.
hands up? Jesus!
Stop it. You know you play too much.
Okay, I'm
No,
just
it
wondering.
wasn't that.
Okay,
But the sorority song, I actually wrote the lyrics to it.
okay. You
Hmm.
remember the lyrics?
I do.
Could you give us a couple of lines? What
No,
sing from? Okay, okay. So continue.
I'm done. That was
Okay.
college. It
So
was
then
great.
when you finish college and decide that you want to continue your
Oh
studies.
yeah. Well, so my major was psychology, and of course, with a bachelor's, you're you're very limited in what you can do to really make a difference and an impact. So I knew I had to go to graduate school. Fast forward, I prayed about it. One of my good friends, same Julie, hey girl, Julie sent me information about a school she was attending the year before I
Okay.
did, and the program looked perfect for me. It was a Christian institution. They had a counseling program. I knew Julie there, so it seemed to me I should pray about it. That summer I did, and within about 6 weeks, I was applying, got accepted. I think it was a provisional acceptance too, but I got accepted and then found housing and moved to Virginia to attend Regent University. Um, I can't say anything but good things about my experience because it was divine timing and it was with purpose. Of all the schools that I really prayed about that summer, it was it was intense. It was intense because I didn't have money saved. I didn't feel like I was being led to apply for loans. And there was a scholarship that I applied for. And I didn't get it the first year, but still I felt God saying, go and trust me, like take that first leap of faith. And I did a YouTube about this as well, just to describe what it means to follow God even if everything isn't exactly as you think it should be, if you still feel called to go on this adventure with God. And it was an adventure. Then trust the Lord. And that's what happened. So I spent 5 years total in Virginia Beach, and two master's degrees. When I got there, I did the counseling program, but during that time is when that call to ministry came, and I felt that I needed to equip myself. So I applied for the divinity school and got the master's in practical theology to help me out. And so I got God proved faithful because I got the scholarship in not just 1 year, but for 4 years, so that I could finish with both of those masters without student loan debt. And that for me was a testament to God's grace and hand of provision and all the other things. And again, friendships to this day, friendships that are deep and lasting, that have blessed my life to this day. That was a very special season.
Yeah. Now, for some, and I know you've told me this before, but for some reason, I did not don't remember you having two masters.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you smart. You're a smart person. So after that,
You were about to say something else?
after you get your two masters, then you decide you want to go and get your
Um,
doctor. Is it doctor of theology?
Doctor of Ministry
Doctor of
degree.
ministry.
So that came much later.
Okay.
Well, like 16 years later.
Okay. Oh.
So from the time I finished the second master's to the time I started the DMin program, it was about 16 years difference. And a lot of that has to do with just life.
Okay.
I went through a season where I was not working a full-time job, and I call that my wilderness season when things were really tight. I did come back to Houston to work full-time in ministry, but there was a shift in all of that, and so the finances, everything just wasn't in place. Although I did
Mm-hmm.
attempt to do so, and it was just, you know what, I did that just to see if I could get accepted somewhere.
Mm.
Just it was one of those confidence boosters. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let me apply. Let me try to do something positive. Let me try to make progress
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Let
Mm-hmm.
me just see if something good can happen. And when I was accepted and I was able to start a little bit, take one class, it was just affirming for me because I was going through so many financial challenges and so many just struggles other places. It was
Mm-hmm.
good to know something positive was happening,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't able to continue. And so it was years later when I was blessed to have the opportunity to continue my education. And I always thought it would be great because, unfortunately, sometimes women still have to perform more, do more, get more. They don't really take you seriously until you've shown that you've done the work, you studied, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was part of that, but also because I really do love learning. I really, really do love learning. I don't like necessarily having deadlines and a whole lot of papers, but I like the learning process. And I actually missed some of the exposure to new thought and ideas that the academy gives to you. So that's why the DMin was on my
Okay.
radar.
Okay. Um, so let's shift for a minute. Let's talk about a little bit about now when you joined the church, or when you came back to uh, from getting your master's, and you joined a certain church. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if we want to talk about the name, but uh, can you share a little bit about you coming to the church to be a minister there, and then how you transitioned from that church over to Wheeler? What made you
Mm-hmm.
make that change?
When I got back, it was New Faith Church in Houston, Texas. I don't mind talking about that because it's the place where I was licensed and the place where I was ordained. So I'll always have something special and a great respect for the founding pastor emeritus, Dr. T.R. Williams Sr.,
What's up, Dr. Williams?
hey, because he opened that door, and I didn't learn until later on that he took a lot of slack for that as well. He was a man early on in his pastoral career
Mm-hmm.
that did not affirm women. And so when God moved in his heart and he began to change and open that opportunity for the women, and I'm like one of the top first five in the history of the whole church, one of the first five that he opened that up to, it was it was it was amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, I really was the first one to have the job there, like full
Mm.
time ministry. There were others who were called and licensed before me, but to be hired full time on the staff, I believe I was the first one. So later on, after about 6.5 years, I had a vision to do some things that were beyond the traditional church scope. And a lot of that is where Her Call Ministries came in and some other visions and ventures. And at the time, that's not what would support my role. I started as the Christian education minister. And by the time I got to the fourth year being there on staff, I was the assistant pastor. I did not feel it was my call. I still don't feel it's my call to be a senior pastor, but I just believe that serving the Lord, serving God's people, working in the local church I'd always be connected to that. That I always, always, always have had vision and connection beyond the local church, because missions and women's ministry and all kinds of things were just a part of who I am. And a lot of that has to do with the roots I have in the ministry I did on the college campus.
Okay.
University of Houston is not a Christian college, but because there were so many Christian organizations and so many ways that we could partner and collaborate with these parachurch organizations, it was just always a part of me because I see the body of Christ like that. It's huge, it's big, it's
Mm-hmm.
beyond the box of what's on a particular street. So, because we had different opinions, ideas, and thoughts about what that would look like with my role at New Faith, there came a point where there had to be a shift. And that's when I call the wilderness season happened, because
Okay.
I was no longer working there. I was released from that job and I moved forward to trust God. Um, and it was difficult financially because you go from having a regular salary to itinerant preaching, some part-time ministry work, consulting, and things like that. And it was probably no it was definitely 4 whole years.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 whole years of being in that space, that wilderness space, when, praise God for being able to find a new church home. And that's when I ended up at Wheeler just as a member.
Mm.
But after about 3 years, Pastor Cosby asked me if being on staff was something I would consider, specifically to give ministry and leadership to the young adult population that was booming and still is booming. I love them though. To give some leadership to that group. And that's how I got to Wheeler and then on staff. And now I've been on the staff full time 12 and a half years.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So obviously, going through that time period, that 4 years or so
The
of being in the
wilderness.
wilderness, that had to be traumatic experience.
There were parts of it that
Mm.
were, but at the same time, there were parts that were so sweet, I would not ever, ever trade it for anything.
Mm.
And the sweetness was that I learned how to work from home. I had a different kind of grit and drive. I learned how to hustle, if you will. Praise God, I have some boundaries and standards and integrity and
Mm-hmm.
morals. So I didn't get out there trying to just scrounge for money or anything. But it sensitized me. Is that the word? Made me
Okay.
more sensitive, made me more softer and compassionate. I always told people that I felt the wilderness was God's way to tenderize me. You know how you tenderize
Mm-hmm.
me?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying God was beating me up, but there's just this different softness, compassion, gentleness that you come out of that season with if you're honest about how you have to process what it means to really depend on God. And then it helped me to understand how others who struggle come to some of the decisions that they make or
Mm-hmm.
what they have to go through. And it just made me a little bit more compassionate when I see people struggling. I know that in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm extremely supportive and sensitive to unmarried women, single women who are on their own trying to survive. Because if you don't have a network, I didn't have a spouse who would kind of cover my bills for this month or that
Mm-hmm.
month, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have siblings. They were all doing their own thing, and they did help. Don't get me wrong. My family is always, my brothers in particular, um, even from grad school, have always pitched in and helped. But there were some moments when it just wasn't there, and it was about trusting God. So it just made me a little bit more sensitive to more of the human condition
Okay.
that I did not experience before that. And so um, it also turned my heart to appreciate what it means to have companionship or know what loneliness was about. You weren't around yet. I didn't even know you existed, but it
I
helped
was
me.
coming. I was
Yes,
coming now.
it prepared me for it, embracing you as a blessing, because being so independent and pretty self-sufficient, you forget that when you really low, it's such a blessing to have someone close by to encourage you. But then also, listen, sometimes I wanted to share good news with somebody, or something finally, bright on the horizon was going on,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like you want to celebrate that with someone. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just the down times, it's the up times too. That's all of that happened in the wilderness.
Well,
That's why I love it so much. Anytime we talk about the wilderness, I peek up. I gotta kind of, what's
I
that?
see. I
That's
see.
a special place for me.
So, being in the wilderness and everything that you went through, how does that impact how you minister to your young adults? And how have you
Oh,
seen yourself growing in that role?
growing in my role as one to minister to young
Mm-hmm.
adults. Well, first of all, I feel like I'm still just very much young. I don't know. I guess it's around being around young
Yeah,
people.
they
So
say young people keep you young.
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just do. I feel like I'm still very youthful, very, very much in touch with some of their struggles. And again, being that I went through the wilderness as a young adult and had to come through a lot of transition, I get it. I
Mm-hmm.
get that you are trying to establish yourself, and there are so many things that are unstable, but you have to find stability in God and your identity first.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as a woman in ministry, I question my own value and my worth sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because, wow, the phone wasn't ringing, nobody was sending invitations, nobody was requesting. So I'm like, God, what do I need to do something else? I mean, I know I'm called, but how did I even get here? You
Mm-hmm.
know, those are questions I think a lot of young adults ask. And when you're trying to figure out what to do next or find your way between professions or between jobs, I get it. I speak from it because I know it. Um, Even keeping your faith, and not just faith in the general sense of, yeah, I believe God, I trust God, but keeping faith that your integrity and your standards will be rewarded. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, I'm telling you, I remember the day. Listen to me. I remember the day that I needed some money. I was driving somewhere here in Houston, and I thought about, wow, I get it. Why some women may choose to call up somebody, because we can
Mm-hmm.
get some money if we need it, if we want to do some things. Um, and I just, on one hand, I was thanking God that I didn't have to get to that place, but it just made me more sensitive and understanding when
Right.
you get desperate enough that you need to eat, or you need to, pay a bill, or
Take care of them
take
children.
care of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some people who may not have the internal fortitude,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, just some of the blessings that I've had to really structure me and build my faith. Those are options for them. It was never
Mm-hmm.
an option for me, but it just helped me to appreciate, wow, this is how you can get there. And so that's what I mean by understanding that. And so out of that, I feel like any of the young adult issues that I've been asked about or I have to minister to, I just feel like I can relate. Because I've been in some of those spaces, some of them.
Mm-hmm. So, so you have been in the church for quite some time. There's always this misperception of certain people that are in the church. Mm-hmm. Some of it is true with certain people, but that stereotype.
Okay.
But obviously, us being married, that's not the case. I want to make a shift and talk a little bit about your hobbies, your social life, and how you kind of got into that space.
Yay.
So, first, let's talk a little bit about the model preacher.
Oh.
How did you come up and coin that term?
Oh, wow. This is good. So first of all, let me just say, it might sound a bit cocky. It might sound a bit, extra, because I'm not saying I am the model for preaching. The model preacher came up because at New Faith, there was a fashion show, an annual fashion show. And to be very honest with you, just being very transparent, the very first one we ever did, I thought it would be more fun and I would enjoy it more if I was actually in the show rather than sipping on tea watching it.
Okay.
Like if I'm gonna be here.
So you put yourself in?
No, I didn't put myself. They needed volunteers.
Okay, gotcha.
So I volunteered. Like I could either just go sit, sip tea, have a little sandwiches, and then watch the show, or I could make the most of it. Because at the time, it wasn't something I was super, super excited about. But you support things, and you don't have to be super excited about it. But the point is, I thought it would be more fun to be in the show. And I kind of got this, like, oh, that was fun. Because we're playing dress up. Okay. That's what we're doing. Every year I looked forward to it. Then when I was no longer at New Faith and at Wheeler, I believe it was a divine moment. And let me tell you why. Because I had started missing that once a year opportunity. It was just once a year. I looked forward to it. And it was fun. It was something cool. Well, now I'm in a new space. I didn't know that they also had a fashion show.
Okay.
Let me tell you what happened. I was leaving out of the sanctuary foyer area, and there's a lady that comes directly to me, and she says, "Hey, they need some models for the fashion show right outside. You should get the information." I had no idea they had a fashion show at this church.
Okay.
She comes to me out of nowhere. You know, the crowd can be big, so she's like somebody just appears out of nowhere in my face, and I go outside, and there are people handing out. This was, I don't know, back in 20, I don't know what year it was, but 2010 maybe. And there are people handing out little cards of information. Now, honestly, if this woman had not intercepted my path, I would have walked out and just moved along with the crowd, because I didn't see these people. I didn't know to look for them.
Right. Okay.
So thereafter, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna adopt this as an official hobby.
Okay.
So being a hobby means I'm going to proactively look for opportunities. Before, it was just I was going to the church whenever they have it, I'm there. But I would look for opportunities outside the church. And modeling as a preacher was a good way to get outside my norm, meet new people, play dress up, like I said. But it actually became a a way of life, in that the models typically just wear what the designer wants you to wear. In these shows, I didn't really pick my clothes. I was just the blank canvas. They gave me what they wanted me to look like. And I always felt like that was a really good illustration for how our lives should be. God knows how he's designed us. God knows his purpose and what we're supposed to be about. We should just do our best to make it look good. Just be the ones walking in life, living in a way that shows off, gives glory, gives praise to the designer. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to do. I'm not a shopper in the big way, and you know that now. I know how to put something together every now and then, but for the most part, at the core of me, I like the fact that somebody else can think of it. I just try to walk and make it look good. And it reminds me of being humble enough to let God design and coordinate coordinate whatever is supposed to be in my life, and trust that even if I don't think it's going to look good, because sometimes I'm wearing stuff like, oh, I would have never purchased that, or I would have never. But once I put it on, or once the total look is there, I'm like, Oh,
Right,
come on
right.
here. Let's walk and make this happen. Yes. And all of the glory goes to the designer. Like I
Mm-hmm.
ain't taking that home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most of it I don't. Uh, but they clap for the designer. They clap
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for the stylist. So
And then you also, because I know this, that you had the opportunity New York Fashion Week, right?
oh yeah. So I met hey, hey Travis. So yeah, so just having that hobby, when I got connected to my other hobby, which is huge, salsa dancing, when I went out to salsa dance, and that has its own history, but when I went dancing, I met someone who's a designer. And I ain't gonna lie, I thought at first he was just trying to holler. You know what I'm saying? But he was legit.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up being in one of his shows here in Houston. And later on, when he had plans to do a show in New York for Fashion Week, he's done several now. It's no big deal for him. But for me, getting into this at the age that I was, I'm not one of your little, teenage
Mm-hmm.
beginner people. Um, my God, it's not even something I'm pursuing for real. I was just doing it as a hobby, ended up being in the right place for a designer to see me. And then I got the opportunity to go to New York to be in his show in Fashion Week. And one of the highlights, it was a little surreal because at the time, Tyra Banks' show,
Mm-hmm.
Next Top Model,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was still kind of hot. And so, or the reruns at least. And the whole idea of going with this group of ladies and a few guys that were going to be in the show and having this house we rented in New York. So all of us staying in this house, the model house, and going on these auditions. It was just really cool. And being able to be in the show. I had a whole crew of people that flew. Some people got on a plane
Wow.
just to go to New York to watch me walk in this show. And it was so, so awesome to have that kind of support. But I don't know. Waking up the next morning, I was like, wow, this is so just great. How many women like spend so much of their lives and time trying to have just one opportunity like this? And it just kind of all came together for me. And I'm not even trying to be a model forever,
Mm-hmm.
professionally. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
somebody want to call the sister up, I'm ready. Um, but it was cool because we saw our pictures in these European magazines, these online
Oh
magazines.
wow.
Like when I woke up the next morning and saw that, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is real. This is so cool." So it
Mm-hmm.
was nice.
That's good.
It's the kind of I could check it off the list. And then, you know what I'm gonna say? I know you didn't think about this, but let me tell y'all something. Some things you end up coming back to later in life, even if when you were younger you pushed it aside. Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember one day I was walking through the mall and a lady stopped me and asked about if I would be interested in going to a model call. And I was so, so, so focused on Jesus. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. But in my mind, I'll never forget the day because I left that department store like, that's a distraction.
I can see that
I
too.
did. I was in my mind, no, I got to stay focused on the Lord. And just, and you know what? Well, I guess almost 20 years later, I end up in a whole fashion show. Sometimes we forget that God is okay with us having fun and just simple pleasures that maybe younger it would have distracted me. I don't know. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
younger in life it would have, but it didn't distract me later and came right back to it when I least expected it. And it was really cool.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into Latin dancing, into salsa.
Because I needed a life. I
Okay.
needed a social life beyond church. I needed to have some friends and people who knew me that did not see Reverend and ask me all these deep questions. I just wanted an outlet,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always liked salsa dancing, the idea of it, and was curious about it. Even it started in college, the first time I ever did even a little couple of steps,
Okay.
but never had the opportunity to learn. And so when I did, after the wilderness, I was now working at Wheeler, and I had a good friend. Hey, Sherry. Uh, she challenged me to go to classes, do something so I can really build my own social life because prior to that, it was work, it was church, which is the same place. And then for stress relief or kicking it and just enjoying a little downtime, I would spend that time was with my niece and nephew, and they were now grown and doing their own thing. So I realized I need to get my own thing. So
Mm-hmm.
let me do something I've never done before. Let me jump into this and find some classes. And I did. That was 2013 that I took my first salsa class, and I've been dancing ever since. And I've had some really wonderful, wonderful friendships to develop out of that. And I also think God used salsa dancing to help me for other things in life because I learned better how to follow. I learned about being a leader as a woman, but also releasing that so that I can follow a lead. I learned about my own, I don't know, insecurities or fear because I was uncomfortable allowing a guy to dip me. I'm thinking, oh, you're gonna drop me, you're gonna drop me.
Okay.
Um, but it just opened up a whole new world, a world of travel because I ended up going on cruises that were all about salsa. Um, I don't know, it gave me a lot to do the physical activity and just a whole new world of people that I really, really appreciate.
That's cool. Now, you touched on something that I want to kind of for you to elaborate a little bit on is learning how to follow
Ooh,
and how that has, you know, helped you in now the marriage or just
yeah.
relationships prior to me. Uh, what was it about learning how to follow as a dancer that has helped you, I guess, learn how to follow as a spouse or as a
Um,
girlfriend prior to?
okay. So when I was learning how to dance salsa, I would have dance partners that would let me know when I was doing what they call back leading,
Okay.
right? And basically, it's anticipating the next move
Mm-hmm.
and just going there without being led into it. So if you're learning to dance,
Listen to this, ladies. This pay attention. Might help y'all a little bit.
so if you when you're learning to dance, depending on the studio, depending on the teacher, you learn these combinations at first, and you learn the combination, and after you do it 6 or 7 times, you just know what's coming next. So you just do it. Even if the guy is ready to do something different, they may
Mm-hmm.
change it on you. They may do a variation, and they can feel that push or
Mm-hmm.
that pull or that tension. And it's not that you're intentionally trying to, it's just maybe as a
Natural. Yep.
leader,
Mm-hmm.
you just naturally kind of go that way. And I learned in a spiritual way and then for relationships that it's better to pull back and rest and allow the lead to lead. That's true with the Lord and with your significant other because it may not go the way you think, and you have a lot more fun, and it's freeing when you can just release and just be led. And so it became my determination. I actually made it a goal of mine to dance and be as light as a feather and try my best to not have any anticipation about anything or expectation, but to just be so in tune with the movement and the subtlety and the rhythm and all of that that I could just flow. And that made for much more enjoyable dancing because I know guys who have said it doesn't matter the woman's size, it doesn't matter her skill level. If she's hard to lead, it's just not fun.
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling, it's like you can have someone who's 5 foot, 2 and
Mm-hmm.
real petite, but if she it's like moving a refrigerator if
Mm-hmm.
she's not
Mm-hmm.
flowing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are women who can be 6 feet and whatever, but if they know how to flow and respond to the subtle nuances of the movements and they just know how to move, it's nothing. It's just like nothing. And that's what I want it to be like. So it helped me to rethink how I move and then to make sure that I wasn't getting ahead of or anticipating too much. In a relationship, I think it's a little bit different because there is a different type of communication.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, of course, is nonverbal, but you do have to sit down and talk, and you want to communicate about where you think you're going and what you want to do and how I can support that. But at the end of the day, there's some things that I'm just going to sit back and pray
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
and say, okay, just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know when you're ready. Let me know. I told you this. I told you what I think. And if I feel like God is telling me, remind you of something or, press this in a little bit, I'll do so. But for the most part, you know,
Yep.
we're going
Yep.
to try to flow. We're going to try
Yep.
to find the flow and have a good time.
That's good. And I know I mentioned earlier, and I said, ladies, pay attention to that. But fellas, also, when it comes to the leading and the woman following, uh, you have to also have a direction. You have to know exactly what it is that you want to do in order for the lady to be able to follow. So if you're dancing and I'm giving the signals that I want to do one move, but I'm really trying to do another move, she's going to she's not going to be able to do the move properly, or it's going to feel as though she's, back
Mm-hmm.
leading because I didn't give the command
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to the dance properly. Same thing for a relationship. If if I'm not communicating exactly the direction that I think we should go, and we haven't talked about this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not clear, or it doesn't sound like I have confidence in it,
Mm-hmm.
she's going to have difficulty wanting to follow that because it doesn't seem as though I really have a clear plan. So just
That's so good.
FYI.
That's exactly right.
So
I could say more, but I'm gonna be quiet because you did that. That was good.
good, good, good. So one other thing, another, I'm not going to say this is a hobby, but I know this is a passion of yours. You're an author. We talked about that. So
Oh,
yeah, you've written what,
three
three
now.
books now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about how you started uh, writing and what made you start, and then do you have a certain process as it relates
Mm.
to writing?
I'm still praying about that. But so my third book was actually the compilation of poems and prayers and just doodling in college.
Okay.
And I kept those for years, and it became a book because I wanted to dedicate those poems and prayers to my husband if I ever got married. And well, that happened. I didn't always know that that would happen, but that's why I saved them. But from way back then, I started writing things as I was inspired. Years later, the first book that I wrote was based on a Bible study that I facilitated at the church. And we just had a lot of good feedback from the Bible study. I kept the notes. We actually published in the church a handout, a little booklet on the
Hmm.
copier in the
Hmm.
office. We created that, Intensified Life. And after we got really good feedback and I had some time to develop it more, that's when I decided to publish it. And then the second book, both of those actually, Intensified Life and the second book that's called Word Infusion, both of those were published during those wilderness years because I had the time to do that. And I don't really consider myself I am an author, yes, and I am a writer to some degree, but more so, I really am a person who is a messenger, a preacher, and sometimes that message needs to be in written form. I'm a
Hmm.
preacher, but sometimes the message needs to be something that is written as a study, as a teacher, a preacher teacher. That's how it is. So it's not like I have these great novels, although I have attempted some in my life. But I think right now I'm more of the person that has a message I believe the Lord wants me to get out, and I need to write it out. There's some of them come through preaching where I'll proclaim it and it'll be a pulpit, it'll be a workshop that way. It may even be a YouTube message. But there are others where I know it's a series that I need to write out, and that's what I do. And
Okay.
I'm still praying about that process because it really is, it's a work for me to get the time and the capacity and develop that discipline. And I've read a lot of things. I've watched some other great writers on YouTube. I've talked to people, but finding my own rhythm is something I'm still working on because I
Okay.
have some other books. I know I believe in my heart I'm supposed to get those done. I have a message that I'm supposed to get out, and I believe it's supposed to be in book form.
Okay. So we've asked a lot of questions, and I want one more question before we close. So if you had unlimited resources, if someone was to say, I'm going to give you, donate this amount of money to you
Mm.
to do whatever you want to do to serve God, and it also has to be something selfish for yourself, what would that be?
Unlimited resources, is that what you
Unlimited
said?
resources.
Unlimited resources. um I would definitely invest more into making sure I could complete the messages for the books, the book series, the books. I would definitely invest more of my time and some of those resources in building and continuing this online platform of ministry because it is a calling for me. It's another one of the spaces I'm to get my message out. Like I said, some by book, some in the pulpit or workshop, some in social media and YouTube. I would do more with investing time and resources into Her Call Ministries, the nonprofit that is a network for women in ministry, creating that platform in a broader way to touch lives, give training, and empower women who are in ministry. I would do more in missions, with missions trips and retreats, spiritual retreats. And I would have something that would definitely be a regular means for giving to those who are in need. Again, I'm always aware of what it's like to be in the wilderness place. And sometimes just a little bit of help here and there can do a lot and go a long way to help people know that you're not going to stay there forever. You go through the wilderness. You don't camp out and live there. You go through it. It's a season of life. It may be a 4-year season like it was for me, but still you can come out on the other side. Um, Selfishly, I would, of course, save quite a bit.
Okay.
I would save quite a bit, invest in some very profitable ways that would help me to secure a good retirement, because in some ways I would retire as it means from working full time for a church, but I wouldn't be retired from ministry. I just have more of my own platform and ways to do all the things, because I got all the things in my mind that I want to do that require more resources, and be able to build something that could actually help others grow in their ministerial development, their personal development, and pay them resources to do that. And then selfishly, also, I think we would be on plenty of vacation trips.
I was
We
wondering when I
travel
was
a
if
lot.
I was going to be
What?
there.
No,
Well,
of
it took you a
course.
long time to get there, though.
Well,
God.
you say the best for last. You know
Oh,
that.
boy, them preachers, boy,
Stop
y'all got some
it.
ways of playing with them words, boy.
But
Woo-wee.
no, seriously. I mean, I would. It would be about making sure that we had the freedom to live like we want to live and do the work we want to do, which I know is important for both of us, to give to others, to support ministry, and travel and enjoy life, dancing around the world,
Okay. Very nice. Very
leaving
nice.
something for somebody else, the next generation. Always that.
Very nice. Very
Always.
nice. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. I hope you all enjoyed listening to our interview and our conversation with Dr. Lekesha B. Obviously, you probably see why now I'm blessed to have her as my wife. She's an extraordinary woman, and I wanted everybody else to see that. So,
Thank you, Lord.
yes, so take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Make sure that you, what is it, on Reading the Rep, like.
Are your eyes watering?
Something in my eyes.
Why is something in your eyes?
Something flew in there. Allergy.
Subscribe, like, share, and leave your comments.
And leave your comments. Reading the Rep, as well as Intensified Life TV with Dr. Lekesha B. Peace, y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.